Go ahead,
Everyone's
Kosala.
Venerable Mahasangha, Bhikkhunis, Venerable Bhikkhunis, Professor Manoris Senanayaka, dear friends in the Dhamma. Today we have to go through a very important and a deep topic, which would be extremely difficult to understand if we don't pay proper attention to the talk. Sakkayaditti basically is the topic, which is a barrier to liberation. Now, Sakkayaditti, when you say it's a defilement, it's a fetter or a tether that binds the being to the long journey of samsara. There are 10 such fetters which are described in Buddha Dhamma as equally important as barriers. Since Sakkayaditti is the topic for today, let's go into details of Sakkayaditti. Now, Sakkayaditti is a mental factor. It's a mental factor because it's a view. Now, according to many suttas in many discourses in Buddhist Tripitaka, Sakkayaditti is given a definition. Now, if you go through the Sakkaya Sutta or the discourse on Sakkaya in Samyutta Nikaya, as well Chula Vedalla discourse Chula Vedalla in Majjhima Nikaya, you can see a definition given to Sakkaya. Sakkayaditti also is discussed in those sutras. Now, if you first think of Sakkayaditti, etymologically, if we try to go through the words, Pali words, and get the meaning, Sakkaya is one word and Ditti is another, which are together taken as Sakkayaditti. Now, if you take the Sakkaya, the word first, Sakkaya is defined according to those suttas which I mentioned as Pancha Upadana Skandha. Ditti is a view that is formed about or formed on the Sakkaya. So Sakkaya is one thing, that is Pancha Upadana Skandha, or the 5 aggregates of clinging. Ditti is a view, a particular view, which we will come to, formed on the Sakkaya. So we have to remember Sakkayaditti is a view. It is not Sakkaya. Sakkayaditti is a view formed on or formed about Sakkaya. Ditti is that Sakkayaditti. So when you eliminate Sakkayaditti, you eliminate that view. One day we have to eliminate this Sakkayaditti when we attain the Sohan. When you do that, what is eliminated is the view, not the Sakkaya. The view around Sakkaya is the one which we eliminate. View formed on Pancha Upadana Skandha. Sakkaya is taken as Pancha Upadana Skandha. Now that view taken on Pancha Upadana Skandha is the Sakkayaditti, which is the one which we eliminate when we attain Sovan. Now we should never get the idea that we completely eliminate the Sakkaya, which is Pancha Upadana Skandha, because Tanha is still there. Now, before going into details of Sakkayaditti per se, let us see what this Pancha Upadana Skandha is. Now, this Pancha Upadana Skandha is very much known to us. And in many Buddhist discussions and sermons, we take Pancha Upadana Skandha as a topic for discussion. And in short, in summary, Buddha has said Pancha Upadana Skandha is dukkha. Now, before coming to Pancha Upadana Skandha, we will say Panchaskandha. Now, what is this Panchaskandha? Panchaskandha is Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Now, this Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara being the Panchaskandha, we have to correctly understand what this Panchaskandha is. Because if we understand Panchaskandha in a wrong way, or if we mistakenly give a meaning to Panchaskandha, we might not be able to properly tread the path or properly practice Vidarshan. Now, when you say Panchaskandha, sometimes we have the tendency to say a being is, or a human being will say, human being is living with the Panchaskandha from birth to death. Now that is a view that we have about Panchaskandha. Now there is no one Panchaskandha going together with the life from birth to death, which we have to understand. If you go into that, it gives a connotation of permanency, which is a wrong connotation. It is the same thing which happened to Yamaka, a bhikkhu. I think I am right in that, who was having the idea that the Arahant lives, and when his demise, he simply goes off and he sinks into oblivion. That was his idea. And he was preaching that to the other monks while Buddha was living. Then a Mahatera came and gave him the right version. The Buddha has not said something like that. There is no one Panchaskandha which is living with a person from birth to death. There can't be any static Panchaskandha. It's a dynamic flux. So we have to understand that we shouldn't get into the habit of saying living of a person is existence of a Panchaskandha, which is not correct. Now, one thing is important. When you say Rupa, Rupa is the form or the material form. Vedana is the feeling. Sanya is the recognition or identification, perception. Sankara is fabrication of thoughts, fabricated thoughts. Mind is, or the Vijnana is the mind. Now, one thing is very important. Vijnana does a pivotal role here. Vijnana has a very important role of a forerunner. Very important, because Vijnana does the knowing of the whole Panchaskanda. If the Vijnana is not there in the Panchaskanda, the whole Panchaskanda goes null and void. The Vijnana is the knowing. Without Vijnana, there can't be any Panchaskanda. Because the knowing of the Rupa, knowing of the Vedana, knowing of the Sanya, knowing of the fabricated thoughts will be done by the Vijnana. So Vijnana is playing a very important role here. Now this Panchaskanda, we have to know now, now there is another thing that we have to understand here. Now we have a body. Now we see a body. Now that we always tend to call the Rupa. A material body we see. Now that body, one has to understand, though it is Rupa, this Rupa in this form of the body, we have what I mean here, body is what we have as a figure that anybody can see. So anybody recognizes another by that, having seen that Rupa or the body of a person. So this body is not Panchaskanda. One has to understand that. This body is the biggest problem that we have when we understand the Panchaskanda and the Panchupadana Skanda. Because we always tend to attribute this body to Panchaskanda, which is a wrong connotation. Now the body is there, and body is ever changing. That is the important thing that we have to know. Even though you see a body, it is eternally changing. There is rising and falling of the body all the time. In a very short period, in a moment, the body changes a large number of times, innumerable times. So body, of course, if you go to Abhidhamma, the Rupa is differently defined. That's not that what I am talking about. The body is not a static body what you see in day-to-day life. If I see Mr. A today, I feel Mr. A the same way is there tomorrow. Now every moment, in a flicker, the A is changing all the time. So it's a flux. So that is about the body. So we feel now all these organs and everything of ours, the internal organs, sensory organs, are housed in this body. So don't take it as, make a mistake here, are housed in this body. All these housed organs are also changing. So body is a structure which is housing all those organs, including the sensory organs. This is very important to know. But in a flux, all these are changing. So that concept we have to get into before I describe the next thing. Now, when we take the Panchaskanda, the components, now this Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, and the Rupa at the point of origin, these are not always visible in the same way. Now, during the wakeful hours, the arising of the Vedana happens, the arising of the Sanya happens, arising of the Sankara happens through the sense dose. That is very much described in Buddha Dhamma. Now, say for example, I am going to give a different angle of the Panchaskanda now. Now, if you take the eye as a sensory organ, sense organ, which is housed in our body. Now, this eye, when it comes in focus with a visual object outside, immediately the mind of seeing happens, chakku vinyana. Now, here there is involvement of rupa. And when this happens, it is identified with sanya arising. Now the sanya arises. Now we must know that. So the sanya arose now. Sanya is not a ready-made, tailor-made thing which is there. It arose now and identified or the recognized the object we saw. And then a feeling rises. Now it is also rising now from nowhere. A feeling arises as Vedana, good or bad or neutral. A feeling arises. Then with this, the thought processes go on the object that we saw and the feeling on what we felt. So the sankara happens. And then the vijnana is there. Vijnana starts knowing all these. So this pack of things, panchaskandha, arises at once. So that is the panchaskandha which arises when the conditions are right. When the eye focuses on an object, those are the immediate conditions. So when the conditions are there, only the panchaskandha with Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana arises. Now that we have to understand. Now if we don't understand or consider this panchaskandha and say that Vedana skandha is there permanently kind of, then you will never see the rising and falling of these panchaskandhas. Panchaskandha always rises and falls. Origin. So the origin and cessation to be seen, the panchaskandha should be taken in this connotation. True enough. You can imagine and think and talk of a Vedana skandha of past Vedana, this Vedana, present Vedana and future Vedana, all that you can discuss as a skandha. But the Vedana comes to execution through the contact based on a sense organ. So the sense organs are 6: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. So they are basically fundamental here as the hetu and immediate cause of the as the panchaskandha arises, for the panchaskandha to arise. So now this, when you take this arising of panchaskandha, that happens innumerable times during your wakeful hours. Through one of these sense doors, a panchaskandha can arise. Even through the mind door, a panchaskandha can arise. So this is the paticca samuppada or hetupala phenomenon. Now when this arises, when a panchaskandha arises in that manner, we have a tendency, since we had been living in a long journey of samsara from birth to birth, not one person, but that is also a changing phenomenon. we had been by default getting attached to the Panchaskandha that arises. Now, what Buddha has, Sambuddha has said, explained was, or is, when a Panchaskandha arises, say Vedana Skandha in that, for us, for us to understand it properly, when a Panchaskandha arises, it can't stay on. It has to immediately cease. So by looking at a object, focusing at a visual object, if a Panchaskandha arises, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, it has to cease immediately. That is very important. That is how you are going to understand the origin and the cessation, rise and fall. Now that is a Paticca Samuppanna phenomenon. That is why when it rises, it falls, because when the Hetu disperses, it can't go on. It has to fall. So Panchaskandha is a phenomenon happening in a flux, a dynamic process. This dynamism is important to understand, because without that, there can't be any Vidarshana meditation. Now, even the present day science has come to a certain degree of understanding of this phenomenon of rise and fall. Now, say for example, we are looking at a flower. Now, when we are looking at a flower, we continuously see the flower. Now, this is our normal experience. If there is a tree with a nice, beautiful flower, if your eye focuses on the flower, you continuously see the flower. So then where is this rise and fall? We don't, without going into two organs, giving you two things like sound and vision, we'll think of only one thing. Now, if you are looking at a flower, the flower is seen in the same way continuously, but which is not true. According to Buddha Dhamma, during the time, if you are focusing your eye on the flower for 5 minutes, you may get the understanding that you are seeing a flower for 5 minutes. The same way, the same thing, without a change, which we have experienced. We can't deny that. But the truth is, during those 5 minutes, we have seen the flower millions of times. You can't count the number of times you saw the flower during that, such a speed, much faster than the speed of light. We are seeing that flower one after the other, innumerable number of times. The speed is so much that we can't catch the change. We can't catch the rise and fall. Because we can't see the fall after the rise, we can see a flower persisting after rising the vision. The flower is continuing. It's not continuing. We are seeing a flower millions of times during that 5 minutes for us to see it as permanently seen. Now, this is very much accepted in science now. You must excuse me to go into science, but in a simple way, when an object is focused on the eye, the light rays will bring an image. The light rays will come and fall on your retina. Retina is the Chakku Prasad, what Buddha described. The sensitive part that will send the messages. That will see the Chakku Vijnana is arising there. Now, when the light rays comes and forms a image of the shape of the object you saw, that image is there on the sensitive part, which will do a chemical change in the retina. That's what we generally discuss in medicine. The pigments, you call pigments or colors, they will change in the shape of the image immediately. So as the light rays fall on the inner retina or the sensitive part of the chakku prasada, in that same shape, the pigments or the colors of the retina will break. And immediately before the next light ray comes, it has to be restored. So you can see how fast it is to be restored if you are looking at the same thing. So as the light rays bring the image one after the other, light rays have to continue one after the other. When the light rays are being, when the retina or the prasada roop, chakku prasada is being bombarded with light rays one after the other, the pigment has to break and restore. So scientists also have come to that conclusion, but they don't know what speed it is. But Buddha said the change is much faster than that. So now you can understand, even if you are looking at one object, the Pancha Upadana Skandha happens at a terrific speed, one after the other. The speed is so much, you don't grasp the change. You see a permanent figure which is not changing. Now that is where we get into the trap. So just to tell you something about the Panchaskandha. Now when the Panchaskandha arises, we immediately get attached to it. Always not with happiness, but we get attached to it. Then you call it a Pancha Upadana Skandha. 5 aggregates of clinging. Because that had been our long sansaric practice. In a putujjana, who is experiencing a Panchaskandha, get immediately attached because the tanha is there. Because tanha or lobha or craving is there, we immediately get attached to the Panchaskandha which originated. So every time during the wakeful hours, whenever the Panchaskandha comes into play, when it arises, we get attached. So this attachment causes a Pancha Upadana Skandha. This Pancha Upadana Skandha, which is rising and falling all the time, is in a flux. Now there is no substance in it. You can't take it as something solid. This is what most of the time Buddha wanted to emphasize on. That is what Buddha wants us to see. So now Pancha Upadana Skandha, when it arises, we get into a ditti. We get into a vision. View. More than a vision, view. That view is formed on the Pancha Upadana Skandha. Say when we see a figure, there is Pancha Upadana Skandha arising. Because it looks permanent to us, because we don't see a change, we form a view on that a person is seeing. Now we bring a person into the picture. Now now you are seeing, you are hearing, all that is Pancha Upadana Skandha. You are tasting, you are smelling, all that is Pancha Upadana Skandha generation. At the same time, you are attached to your so-called housing system of the body. That's differently there. That is your figure which you see. Pancha Upadana Skandha arises all the time. And there is a body which you think everything is housed in it, and you are a compact, solid person. So you always come to the understanding that there is a person called I, myself, or me. Now that is formed on all what you see, all what you experience as Panchaskandha. So Buddha said, if anybody, in one of the discourses in Samyutta Nikaya, if anybody is getting into the self-identity called I, me, or mine, that person is always making a view on the Pancha Upadana Skandha. Always it is a view on the Pancha Upadana Skandha. Pancha Upadana Skandha mistakenly taken as I. So Sakkayaditti is the individual making a I or a person whenever he experiences something. So the experiencing something is the generation of a Panchupadana Skandha through the sense organs. And on that, he produces a view that I am the one who is under control. I am the one who is controlling. So he feels that Pancha Upadana Skandha, whatever he sees, hears, tastes, or smells, is under his control. So he starts feeling that there is a person within. There is a person within. Or there is a person within the body who is experiencing all that. There is a person, within that person is everything is housed. And he feels what he sees, and the Panchupadana Skandha, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana are all equal to a person. So he, twists and turns and thinks of the arising of this Panchupadana Skandha in different way as a person seeing all that. So why did it happen? I am not going to go into the 20 types because that is not what I really wanted. I really wanted you to know what is exactly happening. So now there is a body, which also you don't see your figure as a changing thing. And all of a sudden, a Pancha Upadana Skandha is arising, which also you think is a very genuine thing, not a changing thing. So you feel that you are a person. This had been the practice during a long samsara, forming a view on the experience of all these Panchupadana skandhas as a person controlling all this. That is the self-identification. So now, if you see that, why is it happening like that? Now that is the most important thing that we have to look at. Why is it happening? One thing what it happens is Panchaskandha is converted to Panchopadana Skandha by clinging, because the tanha is there. So tanha gives the origin to the pancha upadana skandha. So you are very attached to the pancha upadana skandha that arises. Whether it is seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, thinking, whatever the pancha upadana skandha that is arising, you are attached. So when you are attached, you have clung on to that, and it's a strong bond. So as long as the tanha is there, you can't get rid of this pancha upadana skandha. So in the Sakkaya Sutta, Buddha has described tanha as the origin of the pancha upadana skandha and the Sakkayaditti. So when you are strongly clung onto the pancha skandha as pancha upadana skandha, you naturally form a ditti. You feel what you saw is yours, and you are enjoying. You have the control. You can enjoy some more of what you are experiencing. And there is a person called me, myself. He is the one who is enjoying. He is the one who is enjoying. So that kind of, I'm just giving the practical points, not going into the theory of the 20 kinds and all. And then he feels, now he is now not seeing anything other than that. That is the problem. So one reason is the tanha causing a strong bond to the panchaskandha. Panchaskandha is like fuel to the tanha. Tanha goes and quickly attaches in a flicker. And the ditti is formed. So tanha is one reason why the panchupadana skandha came to be, and why the ditti formed on that, the view. Second thing is, you have avidya. You don't have samma ditti. That is the other reason. The other reason why you are forming this Sakkayaditti is you are in avidya. You don't see the reality. You don't see the reality. You are forming a ditti because of that. You don't see any anicca in this process. In day-to-day life, when you experience all these panchupadana skandha, you don't see any change, any change here. And you see a permanency at the point of the arising of the Sakkayaditti, that panchupadana skandha. You see at this moment it looks very permanent to you. And you feel that you can enjoy or you can repel or whatever by yourself because you are a person. Whereas we saw it's just a paticca samuppada process. The eye contacted, then eye contact causes the seeing. Seeing gave rise to the identification, feeling, fabrication of thoughts and the jnana, the mind. So all that happened from nowhere. We can now, just with our Srutamaya jnana, we can understand that you can't call a person there because we didn't see any person in this paticca samuppada process. In this paticca samuppada process, we didn't see any person. So all of us don't see this paticca samuppada process, and there is no attempt to see that, so that there is this view formed on the pancha upadana skandha that arises. So Dhamma friends, without going into high details of the theory, I will now like to say, in the sutta, now this is a big barrier. Big barrier. This ditti, this vision of this view that you have formed of a person who is experiencing all these things is a huge barrier to liberation. In one of the Sangyutta Nikaya suttas, Buddha has described it is like a peanut-sized stone. He compares the Sakkayaditti to that, which will sink in water, never float on the surface. So you can't come up to liberation or the Sugati side as long as you have the Sakkayaditti. Always, as that stone sinks in water, you will sink down to the samsara. So that is the danger of having Sakkayaditti. As well, one Deva, again in Samyukta Nikaya, one Deva came and made a statement before Buddha that a person should get rid of as early as possible, as soon as possible. Like if a person who had caught fire on head should get rid of the lust for sensory, for senses, that is sensual desire. Get rid of the kama tanha. But Buddha corrected him. You can't, because you can't get rid of the kama tanha at once. Before that, you have to do something else. So Buddha corrected the Deva and said, before getting rid of kama tanha, you should get rid of Sakkayaditti, because that is a very big barrier. You should get rid of Sakkayaditti before anything else. Because Sakkayaditti is so dangerous according to Buddha. Sakkayaditti, Buddha has said, mentioned in the Brahmajala Sutta, the Sutta where the views are described, as well in Dutiya Itidatta Sutta of Samyukta Nikaya. Buddha has said most of the other wrong views are based on Sakkayaditti, because you think that there is a person operating within you, or you are within an operating person. Because of that view formed every time when you are experiencing something, as long as that is there, that leads to so many other views. So the most commonly arising view, the cause for other views, is Sakkayaditti, which is very well said in the Brahmajala Sutta and the Dutiya Itidatta Sutta. The danger of having this is you are getting involved in anything, because anything and everything, because you are a personality. When you are a personality, you tend to possess things, you tend to get into all other defilements, you tend to do all wrongdoings without knowing that you are not a person. So the danger of Sakkayaditti is it's fuel, it generates fuel to sansaric journey. Secondly, liberation is not possible at all, because you get on to the real liberation path after so on. So until you remove the Sakkayaditti, you cannot get on to the real path of Aryattangika Magga. From the mundane you come, mundane Aryattangika Magga, you come to the level here, and at the Sotapatti Magga, you eliminate the Sakkayaditti, then only you are on the stream actually. So the liberation is impossible if Sakkayaditti is playing up. So Dhamma friends, what I really wanted to show you is the rising of Sakkayaditti also happens with the rising of the Pancha Upadana Skandha. So Sakkayaditti also can be taken as a dormant mental character, mental function, which arises with the rising of the Pancha Upadana Skandha. They are the dittis formed immediately. Because we have not experienced any Panchupadanaskandha, like seeing an object, thinking it is a dependent origination, the phenomenon of dependent origination. We never think that way. We don't see any dependent origination there. What we see is I am seeing something, I am enjoying something is within me. That is the concept we go into. So my friends, in a summary, if I go to so much, you can discuss on Sakkayaditti, which I am also not the expert to do all the justice to this topic. But in a simple form, Sakkaya means Pancha Upadanaskandha. Pancha Upadanaskandha is not a static thing. The Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana is rising and falling all the time. All the time. Whenever the conditions are right. If it rises, it has to fall. There is no two questions about it. Because no factors can last for any length. They come and go. So when the Sakkayaditti is, when the Panchaskandha arises, by default from the sansaric training, we get attached to it with Tanha because Tanha is not eliminated. So elimination of without, now when the Sakkaya arises, Panchaskandha, Panchupadanaskandha arises, we form a Ditti because this is an experience. Arising of Panchupadanaskandha is an experience, seeing, knowing, all that with Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Then we understand, then we get into a view that it is happening to a person. That person is controlling. Everything is under that person's control. That is the Sakkayaditti. So, Dhamma friends, what we have to practice is go against the stream and practice whenever you are practicing. You have to contemplate on the Arya Attangika Magga because in the Sutta itself, the Chulavedala Sutta, the Dhammadinna, Venerable Dhammadinna is explaining how you get rid of it. It's good to read that Sutta. How do you get rid of Sakkayaditti? She gives a very beautiful explanation. As well, you have to always be with the Paticca Samuppada. When you think that you are doing something, you must think that this is something happening on the dependent origination theory, not that I am doing it. It is very hard to do because we have been practicing the other way for a very long samsara. So, Dhamma friends, I think I have done what I have wanted to do. For our discussion, our Venerable Sir is there. He is much more conversed in Dhamma than me. So we can pose questions and we ask our Venerable Sir also for his explanation. Thank you very much. Theruvan Saranai.
Thank you very much. Brilliant as always, Kosala. Before I say anything more, shall Venerable Sir, can you comment?
Yes, I think Dr. Kosala explained very well. But I like to just take the mind of everyone on the situation before the Buddha arose, the enlightenment. The point is there is what we call Sammuti Sakti. Sammuti is the general opinion. Now, what the Buddha did was he was able to see, analyze that's enlightenment. He would see that that's the person is something we consider as permanent. That's general opinion. So, but the thing is now, say Buddhists look at it that way, but there are the Christians, the other religions where this teaching is not there. So they see a person, and in that they get and the normal thing happens, as was very well explained. You see something, and with that you have the the pasapachana, Vedana, like that, the whole process. Now that is what the Buddha realized, and that's what the Buddha explained to us. And that's what really the thing is, the Sammutisatya is where the normal thing where everybody thinks of this particular person as permanent, and you see the person growing and then dying and finishing off. But the Buddha saw that that's why the important thing is the Kaya Anupasana is the first. Did you try to analyze this body? He didn't start with the Vedana and other things, but Kaya Anupasana in the Satipatthana, analyze yourself, see to it. Now see, and the Buddha took everything, the breath, then they looked into the 32 impurities, then the Iryapata, all those things, and then tried to explain. Now, how is it? So this type of analysis was not there prior to the Buddha. And what the Buddha did was to analyze and say, what your concept of yourself as something permanent, as that's what all the people, all the other religions mention of a soul, and that's a permanency. That's all wrong. But try to analyze yourself, try to see to yourself, and all the whole of the Kaya Anupasana, as you look at it, is just trying the people who are making the people understand that the true nature, or the true the Paramatta Satya, as was mentioned, is not that. So we with the Sammati Satya, we consider the person as permanent, as a soul with the soul and everything. But when you go deeper into everything, and that's what Buddha wanted us to do, and when we go deeper and deeper, we see that there is nothing in this, and explanation of that. So this is why, as was mentioned by Vaitapans, the Sakkayaditti is the first Sangyojana, the fetter is the most important, the thing that we have to get, at least when you become a Sotapanna, when you enter that, the Sakkayaditti, Vichikichan, Silambata Parama. So all these are connected with your thinking of yourself as permanent with a soul, because when you say permanency, then the concept of soul comes, and that's where the uniqueness of the Buddhism, the Dhamma, is the anatta, the change in nature, and along with the change in nature, then we have the unsatisfactoriness, and then why is it? Because we have not understand this whole concept that there is no soul, there is nothing like that. So this is the crux of that. And as was mentioned very, very well, that the whole thinking of all other religions is based on this something that you say as a Sammadhisatya. That's where you see a person, and we don't see the changes in that. This is on the long range. We see a child becoming an old person, but the change in nature, as was mentioned, at every moment to moment, the change in, and that's when you observe that. Then you try to see the truth, and seeing the truth in that way, finally you get to the goal of Nibbana. So that's some observations I like to make. I'm very happy to see Kosala de Silva and also listen to him. He has a deep knowledge of these things, and to be very helpful. Thank you very much. And that's my observation.
Kosala, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
From Kosala and Venerable Sir. Now,
Yes.
What you explained very beautifully, thank you. The fact that you're seeing it's a very high speed repeatedly, so it's all a flux. And there is no one seeing, no person, no permanent entity seeing. That person is also in a state of flux. The eye is also in a state of flux. The retina is also in a state of flux. So, and the consciousness is also in a state of flux. The Bahya Daruchirya, who was only told ditte ditta mattam, sute sutta mattam. Now we generally at least that is all that we are told often, which sounds as if you only saw, but that's it. But it means that there was no person who saw. Am I right? Isn't that what it means?
Yeah, actually speaking, there is no person.
Yeah. So that ditte ditta mattam is not only ditte, not only you saw and that was it. That was saw, but really there was no one who saw it. That the seeing is what is not the sight, not the object, but the seeing process isn't there as a person. Now, my question on the Brahmajala is now the Buddha, I thought it is correct, I don't know, to say that the Buddha has said that, or at that time, the Mahavira, the Jain, were pretty close in that they said, they knew about karma, but the difference was, the Buddha said, everything that you see and do is not karma. If there is intention only, there is karma. The Jains had said everything is karma. Now, based on that, I'm asking, just seeing, is it karma? Or is it when you have an intention or you take that eye effect only? So just seeing, if you see and know that really this was a flux, and then that intention comes. How does that come into, clarify that a little bit better if you can, Kosala or Swami Vanse, the intention of, where does this intention come into this?
Yeah. Now, when you see something, what happens is, not only you see, but since we had been the Putujanas of a long samsara, we give the tanha gets attached to it, so that there is an attachment all the time. And when there is an attachment, we just don't leave it as it is, we contemplate our thoughts. So in the process, the Chetana arises, that's a mental thing, that Chetana is also in the process of the fabrication of thoughts. So on that process, we might execute verbally and physically also. So it is that process, actually no need of having a person. It is that process in which you get the Chetana. Chetana happens when you take it as a real thing. When you perceive it, you take it as a real thing. You feel you are a person. So when you are thinking that you are a person, you fabricate thoughts. In the thoughts that you fabricate, there can be many akusala chetana or kusala chetana. So that is what is happening. It's a process which is going on because you took you as you. Your thoughts are very strong and you are formulating thoughts for your benefit. So that thought includes many, those thoughts will include many chetana, intention. But you can get away if you understand that you are seeing that, and if you have practiced to let go, then just seeing will not cause a chetana. You should be able to let go.
Yeah, I think I understood that, because in other words, Panchaskandha is just seeing, but when you get attached to that is Pancha Upadanaskandha. So that's what has to stop, not Panchaskandha. Panchaskandha you can't help as long as you can see and hear.
Yes,
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, what shall I? There is a thing called the Chitta Niyama. The Chitta Niyama and Dhamma Niyama. The thoughts come. But the important thing is that you get attached. So that's why Bahya, if you see that, if you allow the mind to proliferate, then the only thing you see it, you just see it and finish off. But the thing is, if you after seeing it, there could be the thoughts after that. And that's where either it could be attached, it could be neutral, it could be otherwise, feelings come after that. So the point is, that's why the Buddha said, if you see something, that's all. but don't try to go deeper into that. And if you go deeper into that, you will get to these holes. Your past will come, your future will, all those thoughts will come. But be in the present. You see, if you finish. Hearing, finish. But normally what we do is when we see something, we get attached, our thoughts come. And along with that thoughts, then we go in at a tangent. And sometimes we have certain feeling. The Chetana, the thing is that all thoughts are not Chetana. Chetana leads to, if it's a Chetana, volition, that if it leads to a vocal action or a physical action, before that there's Chetana. So if there is no continuity, there is no, the thing is just a thought as a niyama. Just right, let Kosala, Dr. Kosala, that's how I look at it.
Right. Thank you. That was very clear, Venerable Sir and Kosala. Thank you both. There is a question on chat from Samantha Jayatilaka. Samantha, would you like to ask the question, unmute and ask the question, or do you want me to read it? Because best that you ask, Samantha.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Manori. I'll ask the question. Thank you, Professor, for a really interesting and valuable talk. It's something that I myself is confused at certain points. Now, I was wondering now, first of all, what is the difference between the 5 aggregates and Nama Rupa? And because sometimes, they describe the Nama Rupa as and also name and form, Nama being the mental side as Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, and Rupa being the 4 elements, the air, water, temperature, and solidity. And just to clarify that, and also I was just wondering, are the 5 aggregates all a manifestation in the Vijnana that we get, that we cling on to from seeing an external object outside of the 4 elements through the eye, which is also the 4 elements at contact? I get confused. I hope I'm making sense. I get confused with that as well. And why the Nama Rupa is mentioned in the Paticca and preceded before that, you've got the consciousness, the Vijnana, and then you got the after Vijnana, can't remember, after in the Paticca you got the Vijnana, the 5 Salaya, the Salayatana, is it? Or the Nama Rupa and the Salayans, and then contact. Then it goes to clinging and craving. Yeah, just how all those little bits, how they actually fit in. Does that make sense, Professor?
Venerable Sir, would you like to take that? Or Kosala? No.
Let Dr. Kosala reply. The question has very wide connotations and it has to be explained. Can't be done briefly. Dr. Kosala can reply.
I think has he had a problem? Has he left?
No, Kosala is there. I think Kosala, there is unmuted.
And now, Professor, if you can let me know what exactly the question is, because it was not very clear to me, maybe something to do with my...
Wait. The question is, one of the questions, the way I understood is, she wants the difference between Panchaskandha and Nama Rupa. The reason for confusion I can see is that in the Paticca Samuppada, one of the 12 is given as Nama Rupa Paccaya. Nama Rupa is one entity, as it were. Nama Rupa Paccaya Salayatana. So what she says is, if it's all in one, why is it into sort of, I think that is why she is getting confused. But as I would say, as Kosala said, the salayatana, the 6 sense organs are within the body. It was housed there. But you can split it some more to say there is the body, the mind and the body, and then you look at it as then you focus on the 6 senses, because in that dependent origination, because that's where the mischief is happening, one of the places. Of course, sankhara is consciousness, and the avijja causes consciousness. So you get rid of your ignorance, you wouldn't have had the consciousness, and then that would have been the end of the story. But since that has not happened, and you have come down the cycle, you have come to nama rupa. As first, what happens is that there's physical, and there's a nama rupa, and that within that now you see he's going deeper and deeper and deeper, Samantha. It may be the same thing, but you are dissecting further in, is how I see it. Kosala, can you take on Swami answer, please?
Yeah.
That was your question.
Yeah.
Am
Now,
I right, Samantha? Is that your question?
Yes, Dr. Manori. And also you got the consciousness, like the two leaning of the bamboo simile, where you got the consciousness on one side, and then you got the nama rupa, and then within the nama, you got another consciousness as well, if that's correct. I don't know.
No, it's not that it's another consciousness. You are looking, you're dissecting deeper, deeper, deeper into the thing. I mean, not deeper, but the next step and the next step and the next step for clarity. He need not have said 12, he could have perhaps put 4, but the 12 was one explanation. That was one in depth, and I believe it was Venerable Sariputta who had drawn it then as 12 spokes at some point. The first to have drawn it as 12 spokes. So it could have been made into 4 spokes if somebody understood it in 4 spokes. But I can see your point, what you're saying. Yes, there is duplication. Kosala or Swami answer?
Yeah, I think you gave the answer to that. Now, if you take the Paticca Samuppada should be taken in the context it was told. Now, there are certain places the linking of 3 births is taken. Now, that is how sometimes it's described. Now, if you say Vijnana Paccha Nama Rupam, that means, now if you take the Pratisandhi Vijnana, the Vijnana is the mind, Pratisandhi Vijnana. And it is there, it has to be there for the other mental factors to happen. Without a Vijnana, there can't be any more Vijnana arising. So Vijnana gives to another Vijnana. It's a flux. So this Vijnana has to give rise to Nama Rupa, means now in a Vijnana. Now I am trying to discuss the Vijnana Paccha Nama Rupa. That part, if I discuss, I think that will do the necessary justice to that. Now, when you take the Vijnana, in a Vijnana, there are certain Chittaja Rupa. The Rupa is there, Bhava Rupa, Hadaya Rupa, like that. Now, that is one description I am going to give you. So, that the Nama Rupa means in the Vijnana, also there are Rupa. Those are called Chittaja Rupa. And then it gives rise to furthermore Nama Rupa. So this is a reciprocal action where the Vijnana depends on the Vijnana. So that Vijnana Paccha Nama Rupam means it's a reciprocal relationship. There is nothing unidirectional. Then the Nama Rupa can give rise to Salayatana. Without the Nama Rupa means the materialism and material and the mental forms, which will give rise to Salayatana. So that is the explanation where Buddha is trying to show the process of happenings. That is to be taken in the context he preached it at. Otherwise, we'll get confused.
There was, I hope, Samantha, that was clear, I think. Dr. Sirisena had raised his hand. I hope he hasn't left. He was waiting to ask a question. Dr. Sirisena, can you unmute and ask your question? Or was that a... He had raised his hand. I hope he hasn't. Dr. Vimal Sirisena. Dr. Sirisena, did you raise your hand or was that a mistaken? The hand was raised. He's not asking the question. It wasn't written, Kosala, it was only